So I have a little bit of breaking news for you. When I say breaking, I mean I saw it last night. Very late, actually, last night, which, I don't know, was kind of weird. It's a strange time to break a story like that, but Richard Ojeda is officially running for president in 2020. Not gonna lie, it shocked me. It did shock me. Is it shocking you right now? I think it's shocking a lot of you. Some of you probably already know the news, but my guess is most of you didn't know the news. Wow. So this is really, 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 really interesting. So first of all, let me just try to give you my thoughts in the most simplistic way possible. Is this a positive or a negative? I would say it's definitely a positive. Now, is he a long shot? Yes. Does he know he's a long shot? Yes. There are some specific things that are going to really hurt him running in a Democratic primary. And in all seriousness, I think it makes sense that these particular things would hurt him in a Democratic primary. But he voted for Trump in 2016. Now, he supported Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary, but then when Bernie Sanders lost, he voted for Trump. Now, having said that, as of right now, he is like super duper critical of Trump, and he's critical of Trump in a substantive way that I think many of the establishment Democrats can't even touch. So I think it's fair to say, and he may even be asked these questions in the debates, like, do you regret it? And I think if he was being honest with you, he would say, yes, I do regret it. But that is going to hurt him. That's going to hurt him big time, because at a time when there is a lot of anti-Trump grassroots outpouring of energy, to have somebody run in the Democratic primary who voted for Trump, that's going to hurt. Now, the other thing that's going to hurt him is his environmental record. So he is a West Virginia Democrat, and so it's par for the course in West Virginia. You can't say, like, I'm 100% against coal, because that basically shores up the economy in West Virginia. And, they need to diversify their economy a lot more, but the fact of the matter is you can't run in West Virginia and say, I'm just flat out against coal. And, to be fair to Richard Ojeda, if I was running in West Virginia, I wouldn't flat out say I'm against coal. Now, the fact of the matter is, I know moving forward, there's a lot of stuff that we can do to create jobs in West Virginia and diversify the economy there and move off of coal, because at some point, eventually, no matter how far down the road you want to look, we are going to have to get off of coal. We're also going to have to get off of oil in the future. I mean, these aren't questions. These are absolute necessities for the survival of humankind. But yeah, it is true that he wasn't totally against coal. So there are environmentalists who are going to look at him and go, not so sure, dude. So those are the two big things that I think are going to hurt him. But it'll be fascinating to see him running in a Democratic primary. Now, I love Richard Ojeda. I was one of his biggest cheerleaders in the media. Why? Because the way he was running his campaign was just almost everything that Democrats need to do moving forward. You need to double down, or actually, that's not even the right way to put it. You need to go back to being the party of the working class, and you need to be an unapologetic economic leftist. And you need to be pro-union. He played a pivotal role in the teacher strikes. So in many ways, he's going to be called, the most moderate candidate on stage. But I don't think that's anywhere near an accurate description of what his politics are. In reality, he's just one of the strongest populist left candidates on stage. He would be one of the most populist candidates on stage, one of the most anti-establishment, one of the most anti-corruption candidates on stage. Now, I do think that he's going to have a hard time breaking through with people of color, minority voters, and with women. That doesn't mean it's insurmountable, but it does mean that it is going to be he's going to have to do quite a bit of direct outreach to those communities in order to win them over. I think that Richard Ojeda would honestly kick ass in a lot of rural states and in the Rust Belt, which is, again, for a presidential race, pretty much exactly what the Democrats need. Now, in a one-on-one versus Trump, I think Richard Ojeda obliterates Donald Trump. I do. The question is, can Richard Ojeda get through the Democratic primary? That's a much harder conversation. Now, to this point, and also, by the way, I was under the impression he was for Medicare for all when he was running in West Virginia. That's actually not true. Everybody told me, like, oh, actually, no, he supports more of like a public option type thing, so he's not even there yet on Medicare for all. My guess is that in his heart of hearts, he actually does support Medicare for all because he supported Bernie Sanders in the primary, and he just probably felt like, that's a little too far for West Virginia. Now, if I was advising him when he was running in West Virginia, I would say, no, you should come out in favor of Medicare for all, and you could have done it even in the West Virginia race, and it would have helped you. And we'll see if he decides for this primary, for the presidential primary, to come out in favor of Medicare for all and to really go full out. Like, he poured on the economic populism in his race in West Virginia, but let's see if he goes even over the top with it now further, which would be great. If he goes out there and just point blank period says, I'm for Medicare for all, I'm for free college, I'm for a living wage, I'm for ending the wars, I'm for doing a new deal, a giant jobs program to create millions of jobs, do $1 trillion investment in our infrastructure, upgrade it, make it A+, make it the best in the world. It'll be interesting to see if he does that, because if he does do that, man, is he going to be a force to reckon with. And on stage, and here's the most important point, his presence on stage is going to be nothing but a positive, because he's a bulldog, he's a fighter, he knows how to debate, he knows how to talk, he's a presence, he's got a strong personality, and he will drag everybody in that room to the left on economic issues. That is 100% what's going to happen. And furthermore, let's say we live in a world where Richard Ojeda does not get the nomination, which of course is the likely scenario because he is an underdog and he would even admit that he's an underdog. If let's say Elizabeth Warren ends up getting the nomination, just for argument's sake, it would be a wonderful choice for her to say, Richard Ojeda is going to be my VP. Now, why? Well, I already kind of touched on it. Richard Ojeda would guarantee the Rust Belt to the Democrats. Guarantee the Rust Belt to the Democrats, which is exactly what lost Hillary Clinton the race in 2016. So if you're smart, you go, okay, if Elizabeth Warren wins, hey, I would be the first female president. Well, why not pick somebody who we know would do really well in the Rust Belt, which might be one of the areas where the Democrats feel like that was our weakness in 2016, it might be our weakness again. Let's get it right. So there's nothing but positives to Ojeda being on stage. Now, some of you might think, well, what if Bernie runs? Is he pulling some votes for Bernie? My whole take on that is you need to have more establishment people running than leftists. Because as long as there are more establishment people running, they'll split the moderate vote amongst themselves, and then the lefties will be the last people standing with the most votes. And also the lefties, I just think, have a built-in advantage, especially in a Democratic primary, because they're correct on the issues and they actually want to help people. Whereas the corporatists are just kind of doing a song and dance and they don't really mean it, and it kind of comes across that way. But as long as there are more leftists running than establishment types, then I think that it's totally fine. And also another thing that I was thinking about, listen, my job is to give you guys the facts, is to give you guys the information and to tell you my opinion. But one of the things that, I've gravitated more and more towards this position as time has gone on, I'm not going to be in the business of tearing down people who meet basically the minimum bar of being like, oh, you're on the right side. Now, that doesn't mean that, I hold my fire on the Joe Donnelly types or the Heidi Heidkamps or the Hillary Clintons or the people who I'm convinced don't mean it at all and are not actually on the left and are just careerist politicians who are self-aggrandizing narcissists. I will not hold my fire on those types. But I will be crystal clear in the primaries, because there will probably be many really good candidates running on the Democratic side. I will be crystal clear that they're all good candidates. I will call all of the good candidates. And those candidates, and I hope some of them are listening to me now, those candidates should not tear each other down. again, I have no problem if you want to fight the Democratic Civil War and you want to go after the people who are actually on the wrong side of that Civil War and are openly on the wrong side of that Civil War, the people who, you look at them and you go, even if I push them, I don't think they would come to the right policy and govern the right way once in office. I'm fine with having those debates and those arguments. What I'm not fine with is people who actually more or less agree on the right ideas. What I'm not fine with is those people tearing each other down, because that is hurtful, that isn't helpful, and, it's basically like divide and conquer. The only way for the left to lose, since most of the people are with us according to the polls when you look at the policy positions, so the only way for the left to lose is for us to divide ourselves amongst ourselves and then fight each other. And I don't want that to happen. So in other words, I don't want Bernie Sanders and Richard Ojeda tearing each other down on stage, because they're both really, really good candidates. So now, that leads to a bigger question. Who's going to be running this year? I mean, that's a really long conversation. All I can tell you for sure is I think that the Democratic stage is going to be absolutely packed. It is going to be super duper packed. And I think Elizabeth Warren's running. I think Kamala Harris is running. I think Cory Booker's running. I think Michael Bloomberg's running. Joe Biden, I think, is running. Now there's a decent chance Hillary Clinton runs as well. We're going to talk about that in a second. Andrew Cuomo, I think, is running. The breakfast cereal president, or the breakfast cereal governor, Hickenlooper, I think, is running. I really think his name sounds like a breakfast cereal. Wake up to a nice bowl of Hickenloopers. It just sounds so stupid. And then also, I think there's a chance that Tulsi Gabbard runs now. So there's going to be, and what I'll do is, when we know the entire Democratic field, I will give you guys my rankings, okay? And I'll also give you, my categorization of each candidate, and I'll have them in a few separate groups, like the ones who are just flat out the corporate Democrats, and then you have the ones who are kind of one foot in the establishment camp, 1 foot actually believing leftist camp, and then you have the flat out people who I think are for working people and are leftist. So I'll give you my ranking once we know the entire field, but suffice to say, Ojeda jumping in there, knowing what he actually believes on issues involving the working class, I think he's in the top tier. Now, if Bernie runs, I'm a Bernie guy, and I would support Bernie over Richard Ojeda, but Richard Ojeda is definitely up there. And again, I'm curious to see what exactly his platform will be in this Democratic primary, because you need to be for Medicare for all, I think, in order to have a chance. You need to be for free college. You need to be for ending the wars and a New Deal. There are a lot of these things that he really should, even though he ran super populist in his West Virginia race, I think he would need to be even more populist and even further left in the Democratic primary and in the general election. And here's another thing I'll tell you about Richard Ojeda. He's one of the few people, along with Bernie, who I'm not worried about them pivoting if they get to the general. I think Richard Ojeda is going to be like, no, I know what I'm going to argue for, and I'm not going to sprint to the center to try to appease moderates or get moderates on my side. I'm going to super serve my base. In the same way that the Republicans super serve their base with all the anti-immigrant fear-mongering leading up to an election, I think Richard Ojeda will be like, no, I'm going to super serve working people. That's what I'm going to do. And also, I don't know, for example, what Richard Ojeda believes on the issue of reproductive rights. And I think the answer to that question is going to be important for the race and for his chances. But overall, nothing but positives to having him in the race. So I'm happy that he's running. I think he's going to be a wonderful candidate. And it's good news, man. Unexpected, but good news. And also, final point, now there's speculation about whether or not Beto O'Rourke will run too. So again, when we get the entire field, I'll break it down for you. If we had ranked choice voting, what exactly my order would be and what category I put either one in. But overall, this is wonderful news. Richard Ojeda running in 2020.